Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the NWA Back for the Attack pay per view return. The National Wrestling Alliance returns after almost a year's hiatus, maybe a little longer. This afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the 21st of March. Better show than the WWE Fastlane show with much lesser known talent in most cases. And yes, that's just my opinion, but at the end of the day, I care about wrestling, and this was a wrestling show. Show opens with Aaron Stevens talking about how he was basically done with wrestling. I've known Aaron probably for 20 years, and I remember when he was completely disappointed with the process of the wrestling business, and um, how Joseph Hudson, aka Question Mark, aka Josephus, helped remind him that he loved the fans of wrestling. He said he took the fans for granted. Hudson helped him remember that he was always going to be a wrestler. This was a really heartfelt promo and awesome. Nick Aldis speaks about how he's sure that Stevens was going to bring it with everything he had tonight. He's the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and um, this was a promo from a guy that's held the championship for 882 days. Hope they get him to the 3 year mark. That would be awesome. Um, Nick Aldis is a guy I didn't like until I saw him in this role. I didn't particularly care for his TNA work. It was clunky at the time, but I love Nick Aldis as the NWA champion. Joe Galley and Tim Storm run down the card for the event. Kyle Davis interviews uh, most of the talent throughout the day, although there is a female interviewer. We'll talk to her about her when we get there. She's one of the low lights of the show. Um, anyway, Davis interviews Aldis. Aldis says last time he stood in this room, things were different. NWA had suffered several setbacks, but that's a setup for a comeback, and now the NWA is back. Aldis thanks the fans for buying the show and sticking with them. He puts over all the wrestlers in the back, something that today's ladies and gentlemen in the business on a national level aren't allowed or encouraged to do properly. Um, and I love that he did this. Um, he basically said they want to put on the best show possible. Wish he wasn't uh, using the word show. I don't like show in my wrestling. Could have said put on the best match possible. Be in the best match possible. Be the best athlete they could be. I'm just not there with the word show. But he says they're doing it for Joseph Hudson too. Touching moment. He said if Pope, Murdoch, or Rosa or Camille stole the show, then so be it. If Aaron Stevens managed to beat him for the championship, then so be that too. He's the real world's champion and they'd have to pry it out of his hands. But in the end of the show, everyone will know the NWA is back. This is how a promo is done. I haven't seen anything this compelling from WWE in at least 10 years. Well, no, that's not true. On a consistent basis, I haven't seen someone as strong as Nick Aldis when giving promos about that championship in 10 years. I see glimpses of good stuff from guys like Orton and Edge and Keith Lee when he was allowed in NXT. There's stuff, but consistency lacks at the main level. The good news is at least AEW is trying with that, but even they're hit and miss. Nick Aldis is a boon to the NWA, but being wasted by only being in that promotion. We go to a four-way, which I'm not a fan of, but hey, whatever. Sliced Boogie defeats Jordan Clearwater, Jack Stane, and Crimson. Jack Stane I'd seen before. Crimson, I believe, was in TNA at several points. Sliced Boogie, I think I'd seen once before NWA Hollywood, maybe, or Championship Wrestling Hollywood. Jordan Clearwater, not sure I remember him. Good opening match. NWA putting over new talents, which is an awesome thing. Story of the match, Crimson and Dane used to be a tag team, and they basically manhandle their other two opponents in Clearwater and Boogie. The announcers are intelligent. They remind us that only one person can win the match, and it's first pinfall or submission that wins. Other guys get involved back through. Boogie hits a massive German suplex on Clearwater. Dane catches him with a dive and then locks on a Boston Crab. Crimson hits a Death Valley driver, but Dane breaks up a pinfall, showing it's every person for themselves, which was well done. They do kind of go back to teaming up when it suits them, but they're willing to fight. Dane and Crimson hit the off with their head on Boogie. Boogie refused to stay down, and Dane and Crimson eventually go off fighting. Boogie hits the Deadass driver, and then on Clearwater for pinfall victory. This was good. Get somebody new over. Could be fun. Would love to see where they're going to go with the character. I care what happens with all the characters in the match, which is a key point. Sal Rinaro's backstage. He's interviewed by May Valentine. May Valentine. This was the worst part of the show. I understand she's somebody's girlfriend. I get it. But at the same time, she needs presence training. She doesn't have any. Tyrus, otherwise known as Titus, what is it? And I want to say one of the old Funkadactyl guy that used to bodyguard for Snoop. Don't remember. Brodus Clay. There we go. Took a minute. Got there. Against Kratos. Match was not good. It's a hoss fight, but it was basically two guys who were a little beefy and who didn't exactly be on the same page very often. Tyrus works over the arm of his opponent and does big man moves, including nerve hold of doom. Tyrus goes for the Bader bomb, doesn't hit it, and his opponent moves out of the way. Opponent hits a flying clothesline, and there's a timber-style bump, which didn't look great either. Tyrus kicks out and hits a splash in the corner, and then a running elbow gets the win. We're back to May Valentine, which makes me quite sad. She's there with Trevor Murdoch, who talks about his match with Chris Adonis, otherwise known used to be Chris Masters. He said that he was not the man that Adonis met before in WWE, and if Adonis wanted the national title, which is what they were fighting over, you'd have to dig deep within and question if he had what it took to make good things happen. So, NWA Television Championship. The Pope went to a draw with Tom Latimer. Match is fine, not bad, not great. I like the TV title gimmick. I like they gave it 10 minutes. I like they went to a time limit draw. Joe Galli informed us that there's been a rule change. Used to be 6 minutes and 5 seconds, but now it's 10 minutes and 5 seconds to give TV championship matches a little more time. Latimer has the size advantage. Pope is able to use technical and speed to give him the advantage. Clash of Styles is what this is throughout, and Latimer spends early parts of the match using his size and power. Pope stays with him, several pinfall attempts back and forth. As much as it's not a match that's writing anything home, it tells a good story, and both guys look competitive throughout. Latimer sends him back down with a heavy strike every time he starts to get momentum, and it tells a story that they could easily go at it again. Latimer hits a big axe handle off the middle rope, goes for a second one. Pope pulls his legs out from under him and sends him crashing to the match. Interesting spot where Latimer actually hits his head on the buckle. Latimer goes for leapfrog. Pope hits the inverted atomic drop DDT for near fall. Pope hits several elbows, and then Latimer dodges the double knees in the corner and power bombs Pope as the clock ticks down to less than a minute. And then they go. Aaron Stevens cuts a promo talking about James Hudson again post-match, but they obviously go to a time limit draw in the TV title thing. Stevens basically says that his son's best gift that he could give his dad is becoming a good man. Stevens talks about how he was trained by Killer Kowalski and has been wrestling his entire life since the age of 16. He wasn't going to waste the chance at the NWA title. This was phenomenal. Camille defeated Thunder Rosa to become the number one contender to the Ladies Championship. Tennille, Taryn Terrell was just abysmal on commentary, basically doing a ditz gimmick, kind of, sort of. Camille isn't quite ready for the role she's in, botches a few spots, but it's not a bad match. Rosa brought her back under control immediately every time things slipped off. Rosa basically was aggressive with strikes throughout. Camille does a lot of selling, sells like $1,000,000, and the Styles Clash was awesome and worth watching. Rosa sold like death for the power moves of Camille, and match was actually much better than it had a right to be. Rosa made Camille look like $1,000,000, so the only complaint about the match would be that it did run a little long, but with only, maybe 5, 6 matches on the show, I understand why they ran a little long with this. Camille overpowers Thunder Rosa in the beginning of the match. The announcers acknowledged her match with Britt Baker on Dynamite, but didn't, I don't think, mention her by name. Camille takes advantage of these during the first few minutes, but Rosa is able to counter into an armbar and a triangle choke on Camille, but Camille power bombs her way out. Awesome power there. Camille goes back to the corner, tries a spear, as Terrell says. I believe she called her Stompy. Anyway, not her shining moment. Anyway, so Camille missed a spear and then hit shoulder first into the ring post. Thunder Rosa hits a baseball slide into Camille. Camille does botch a slam on the floor that did look good, but she gets sent into the apron. I guess you could say the post, but that wasn't really what happened. Rosa bends Camille in half around the post, does the bow and arrow spot, which looked like $1,000,000. Rosa hits a bunch of strikes, and then Camille hits a suplex. Camille goes to pick Rosa up, and Rosa counters into the STF. Love Rosa using the MMA style stuff here. Rosa transitions into a surfboard, but curve stomps Camille. Rosa hits a drop kick to the back. Camille hits 2 consecutive spears for the win. This was awesome. Anyway, Austin Idol of all people's backstage, saying he's here because Aaron Stevens asked him to be here. And then we go to NWA National Championship. Trevor Murdoch defeats Chris Adonis, a.k.a. the former Chris Masters, in the National Championship. Match was simple, proved its point. Both guys basically had what you'd see on an indie show, but that's fine because not every match needs to be spot, super kicks, and Meltzer drivers. Sometimes a match just needs to tell the story of the characters involved. Murdoch keeps going back to headlocks. Adonis, a.k.a. for the former Masters, tries just about everything. Hits a Russian leg sweep. Murdoch goes for a bulldog. Adonis dodge. Hits a series of elbows. And then mounts with a bunch of strikes. Murdoch stays on top. Basic wrestling. Counters the Master Lock into a pinfall attempt. Murdoch tries to show sportsmanship, and Adonis accepts it momentarily, but then attacks Murdoch from behind and starts to choke him. Then we see the Master Lock and hits a full Nelson Slam, locks it in again into a camel clutch. Referee tries to break it up, and Murdoch had gained a victory before it got to that point. Austin Idol is on commentary, talks about how Stevens wanted a coach for the match against Aldis. Idol helped Aldis beat Tim Storm for the title. Idol said he'd help him, and he wouldn't be an underdog. He said Aldis is representing the UK and putting everything on the line. Stevens isn't an underdog, and that this is a really good chance for him to beat Aldis. And again, Austin Idol shows why guys from 30 years ago know how to talk naturally, whereas guys today and girls today don't know how because they're not allowed to. Kyle Davis leads a 10-bell salute for people involved in the wrestling business that passed away. James Hudson, Ron Reed, which is Buddy Colt, and Jim Crockett Jr. And then your main event, Nick Aldis defeats Aaron Stevens to retain the NWA Championship. Solid match. Both men did everything they could to be putting forth a good effort to honor, the passing of Hudson. And Aldis continues to be, I would say, the standard bearer of what a wrestling champion should be. Aldis opens the match with some shoulder tackles and tells Stevens to get his head in the game. Stevens is wearing question marks colors. Stevens gets aggressive with some strikes and a belly-to-belly suplex, but misses a springboard moonsault. First time we've seen that type of high spot in the whole entire show, and it's special, even though it's a miss. Aldis works over Stevens for a bit, including beating him down on the outside. Aldis hits a sidewalk slam on the apron and works over the back of Stevens. Texas Cloverleaf is used later, so this all makes sense at a later point. Aldis gets kicked. When he goes for the back body drop, Stevens hits an inverted atomic drop and a super kick. Both men basically do a double down. Near falls throughout. Near submissions. Stevens at one point does a figure four. Aldis goes for top rope elbow, but the damage done to the leg in the figure four. Then there's a superplex with both men down. Again, high spot, but it makes sense with where the rest of the match had been. Stevens goes for a second superplex, but Aldis knocks him off the ropes, and Stevens gets a 2 count. Aldis said you had a good game as he picked him up. Goes for pile driver. Stevens countered with a back body drop and a rolling elbow for a 2 count. Stevens exposes his knee and hits a knee drop almost like a Harley Race one would be back in the day. He goes for drop kick from the middle rope. Aldis catches him and locks him in the Texas Cloverleaf right in the middle of the ring. Stevens then miraculously made it to the ropes and rolled out to the floor. Aldis goes for power slam on the floor. Stevens slips out and drove Aldis into the ring post. The ring post thing has got to go from wrestling for a little while. It's just, it happens way too many times across all companies. Anyway, and then Aldis is selling his arm. They both get back in the ring. Texas Cloverleaf again. This time, Stevens drives him back to the corner and hit an arm breaker on Aldis. Locks in a crossface. Aldis makes it to the ropes again. Stevens counters with a pinfall attempt back into the crossface, but Aldis just barely makes it to the ropes. And Stevens goes for another arm breaker on Aldis. Aldis blocks it and cradles Stevens for the pinfall. Stevens falls into the corner. He's crying. He's holding question mark's mask. Aldis told Steven to stand up and take it like a man. Shook hands, cheers from the people that are there. Fans chanted, "Thank you, Joseph," as the roster comes out. And they pose with flag. It's beautiful. This is just an amazing thing. It's awesome to have a place for a true independent wrestling-based product in a world that has glitz and glamored a bunch of spot givers, and I love this. It's a throwback to the 80s and early 90s. It's a platform to help younger talent develop characters and start to learn to talk and timing and all the stuff that unfortunately in most larger wrestling companies they won't be allowed to use. It's not supposed to be, the Dave Meltzer 7-star classic BS that the internet loves. It's supposed to be wrestling the way that drew money back when there was something more than television ratings. The tribute they did for Joseph Hudson was classy. Um, the key was that the NWA basically treated someone's life as meaning more than show business, and that matters. Um, I'm excited to see the return of NWA Power. I would love to see them build to 6 shows like this a year and a weekly Power show. Um, it'll be hard for them to find talent, but at the same time, talent that is tired of the glitz and glamour who want to develop characters can come here for 3 to 6 months and do something unique and maybe find themselves in love and passion again. In any event, I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.